No matter what you think of all the 42 winning games in Survivor, every winner is deserving in some way, as you gotta do something right to outlast all the rest and earn the majority votes from the jury. In all the 42 winning games, each winner has had a distinct move to help them win that season, and today, we're gonna go through all those moves. What's going on, guys? I'm FlynnMasters, and today, we're gonna be discussing the best move from each Survivor winner. No matter how hard it gets, I'm gonna try to find their best standout moment in terms of strategy, as while winners like Fabio, Mike, and Ben won from challenge wins and idol finds, those aren't necessarily quote moves per se, so I'm going to try to avoid things such as immunity wins as the winner's best move. I'm also not going to be including final tribal councils as a winner's best move, as while you could argue that's what makes winners like Chris and Todd stand out, again, it's not necessarily an in-game move. So with all that said, strap in and let's go through each winner's best move in Survivor. The first ever winner in Richard Hatch essentially invented the game of Survivor, or at least how to win Survivor, as he created the majority alliance that dominated the game while also making connections with his tribe and the other players on Pagong. But come on, we all know his best move, as it's not only great, but it's freaking iconic. With over 50 million people watching, Richard shocked them all at the final immunity challenge.
I'm gonna hope that either one of you just recognize what I've done to get here.
Si, senor.
I wish you both luck.
Rich! Oh my gosh.
And what makes it so iconic was that it wasn't a pure shock value move for Rich, it was generally a smart move. If he won this immunity challenge, he either brings Rudy with him to the end, a final two he probably loses, and if he did make the smarter move in cutting his ally and friend Rudy, he would have lost all respect from the jury, and Kelly would have won the game at that point. So he knew winning this challenge would only cause him harm, and by stepping out of the challenge, this gave him the best shot to be the first ever Survivor winner.
Whoever is immune has to pick between the other two people as to who goes to the jury. Each of them could 50-50 pick me.
On to Tina Wesson now, who is such an underrated winner of the franchise, as her amazing social game gave her the win over the challenge beast in Colby. But none of this endgame would have mattered had Tina not pulled off the biggest move of the season at the final 13. Going into Tribal, her and Keith were at the bottom, with the majority 4 planning on voting for Keith that night. But on the way to Tribal, Tina was able to get Colby to flip to her and Keith's side, with the 3 of them voting for Mitchell, and since Mitchell had received a prior vote as opposed to Keith, he would be the one sent home. This not only put Tina in the majority, but the trio that she formed in herself, Keith, and Colby would end up being the final 3.
This was not my original intended vote. However, on the way here to Tribal Council, a new scheme was developed. So in the spirit of the Olympics, let the games begin.
How many votes have you had cast against you, Keith?
None.
Mitchell?
1.
1. 1 vote is the difference. I need you to bring me your torch. And a long vote, Mitchell. The tribe has spoken.
On to Ethan Zohn now, the winner of Survivor Africa. I know, I should just say the words amazing social game and move on, but I do think Ethan was responsible for a big move this season that basically ensured Baran would have the majority come the merge. After the first ever tribe swap, Silas was in deep trouble, as Frank and T-Bird wanted nothing to do with him. So Kim and Ethan decided to throw the immunity challenge to get rid of him, the first time a challenge was ever thrown in Survivor. Silas was voted out that night, and even though Baran 2.0 did win the next immunity challenge, OG Baran was still able to head into the merge with the numbers, and even if they didn't, it's very unlikely Sam Brew were ever going to be able to get back to working with each other. Thus, by ensuring Silas went home before the merge, this gave Ethan his frankly easy path to victory.
Talk with Kim. I'm like, Kim, this may sound crazy and I've never done this in my life. I'm an athlete. I go out to win. I've never fixed anything. I'm like, what would you think if we lost this next challenge on purpose?
It's over, Baran! Right here.
What's it?
The 4th and deciding vote. Silas. Silas, tribe has spoken.
Let's now talk about, in my opinion, the most underrated winner of the show in Vecepia. I've said this a million times, but I think people forget that V was really the first Survivor player ever to abandon her minority tribe to join up with the majority to save herself. And of course, she essentially broke Survivor by using her journal to keep notes of the players, winning the Know Your Jurors challenge when she was in danger. At that infamous tribal, she went from the bottom to the top as she made a deal with Kathy on the spy, and Kathy survived the rock draw. However, V would turn on Kathy as quickly as she joined forces with her.
I'll give you immunity. I'll drop off if you take me in with you. Okay?
Because I could stay up here all night. I'm not
I
even
can stay up here all night,
yeah.
too. I'm not tired.
You want to do it?
I Might as well. I mean, Kathy already went out.
I'm fine with that.
Now, while this was far more ruthless than Rich, and probably lost Kathy's vote because of this, V once again realized that she couldn't beat Kathy, and knew Nalia felt the same way. Thus, she let Nalia write down Kathy's name in front of the jury. Again, if V were to win this challenge, she either takes Kathy with her to the end and loses, or cuts Kathy after making a deal with her in front of the jury a day prior, and probably would have lost all respect from the jury at that point. Man, I just have to say this one more time. Vecepia is super underrated. On to the first true dominant winner in Survivor, Mr. Freeze himself, Brian Heidik. I think what's so great about Brian is exactly what makes him such a hated player, especially for the era he played in. In modern Survivor, controlling the entire game and having everyone in the endgame trust you would be massively respected, but back in season 5, seeing Brian literally not give two Fs about anything other than winning was a shock to see play out in 2002. But I think his best move comes at the final 13 Tribal Council. So for those of you that forgot, and I can't blame you for wanting to forget, there was conflict happening on Chuigon as the infamous Grindgate incident caused animosity between Ted and Gandia. So Gandia formed an alliance with the woman, but Helen and Jan wanted to target Clay instead of Ted. But instead of siding with Gandia, who had felt uncomfortable the past couple days, Brian used this as an opportunity to turn the vote against her, as he got Ted and Clay to go against the girls' alliance, while also convincing Helen to flip to the men's side as well. This officially gave Brian all the control on Chuigon, which would eventually lead to complete control in the endgame as well, all because he saw an icky situation playing out, and he took full advantage of it. There's a reason why he's nicknamed Mr. Freeze.
This is a business trip, as I like to say.
Gandia, that's 4. You need to bring me your torch. Gandia, tribe has spoken.
The first true shocking winner came from Survivor Amazon in Jenna Morasca. Not only did the edit bury her, but she literally wanted to quit days before the end. And while she was able to navigate her way through the wild ride that was Amazon, it was mostly her immunity wins and bringing Matt with her to the end that won her Survivor. However, her best move comes from the final 6 Tribal Council. After Chrissy admitted she didn't know which side she was voting with, Rob was wary of her and attempted to realign himself with Jenna and Heidi, who he had just betrayed at the last Tribal Council. So, in order to prove their trust to Rob, Jenna gave up her immunity to Heidi. This let Rob know the two were serious and got Matt on board to blindside the swing vote Chrissy. Had Jenna not done this, Rob most likely votes out Heidi, with Jenna going home at the final 5. However, by keeping her friend in shield, she was then able to sneak her way into the final 4, where she won the final 2 immunities, and all that was possible due to her incredible risk.
You can always give that necklace up if you want.
I'd like to give it to Heidi. Strategy, that's all I can say.
This is a first. Give it over.
One.
Jenna giving up her immunity to Heidi. 11th person voted out of the tribe, the 4th member of our jury, Christy. Christy, the tribe has spoken.
The first game of the Queen's 2 Survivor victories admittedly had its ups and downs, as she was almost the first boot, and was blindsided multiple times by Fairplay and Burton. And at the final 5, after the two took out her closest ally in Krista, Sandra had finally had enough. After Burton won the final 5 reward challenge and brought Fairplay with him, this gave Sandra her opportunity to bring the girls together and take out the power duo.
John screwed me once, twice, John won't screw me again. He slapped me in the face once, he slapped me in the face twice, he won't slap me in the face.
I have always said that they were both snakes, and I have always said that they're good liars. So everything that Lil was saying is stuff that I had already mentioned from before.
All you gotta say to me, Sandra, whichever one of the guys doesn't have immunity, that's who's going home. You don't even have to whisper and take me in the bushes and talk to me for 2 hours.
12th person voted out of the tribe. Burton, need to bring me your torch. Burton, for the 2nd time, the tribe has spoken.
I'm simply not that high on Amber's game in All-Stars, as I definitely think it was mostly Rob that carried the two. But the one thing I cannot deny is how well she performed when her back was up against the wall. As we all know, Amber was swap screwed into the original Mogo Mogo tribe. And yes, while Rob of course gave his last plea to Lex on his way out, I think Amber did a really good job during her entire 3 days with the Mogo Mogo members, and ultimately convincing them to spare her over the hated Jerry.
This is the deal. In the end, it comes down to you, Lex, me, Rob, and Big Tom. That's what I think.
How do we convince Lex to get rid of Jerry?
Well, doesn't he think that Big Tom will be on his side in the end, too?
He does think Big Tom will be on his side. Okay. Yeah. And he thinks Rob will come over, too.
I've just been talking to Amber, and I actually think it might make sense to keep her. Just because if we do merge, Mariano's going to carry a grudge on that one.
9th person voted out of Survivor All-Stars. Jerry. That's 3 votes, that's enough. Jerry, the tribe has spoken.
While Chris is definitely one of my favorite winners, I do think he is a bit overrated, as he willingly put himself into the minority at the merge, and it was more so the work of Scout and Twyla that spared him at the final 7. However, while Twyla and Scout were indeed willing to save Chris, they only requested one thing from him, and that was for him to convince Eliza to jump on board this Final Four alliance. And yeah, convincing someone like Eliza to join forces with Twyla was no easy measure, but Chris was able to pull it off with flying colors.
Listen, Eliza, you don't have to go home tonight. All you gotta do is one thing.
Okay, what do I have to do?
This is how you can stay.
Chris pulls me aside and says Twyla and Scout discussed with him the possibility of changing this game around, and the only way to do it would be with my vote.
You have my word, I swear to you.
But I don't trust Scout and Twyla, that's what scares me.
You do not have to worry about Scout and Twyla. I swear, just please, take this risk.
12th person voted out of Survivor Vanuatu. Leanne. Your torch.
For as beloved of a winner as Tom is, I think people forget just how villainous he was with the way he treated Ian at the endgame of Palau. But while it was villainous, it also was without question his best move. At the Final Four, Ian admitted to Tom that had he not won immunity, it would have been a difficult decision for him on who to send home. Flabbergasted that Ian would even think about turning on his closest ally, Tom tried to turn the vote back onto Ian, but was unable to get Katie to flip as well, with Ian winning the fire-making challenge against Jen. So with Ian still in the game, Tom basically spent the next 24 hours gaslighting the poor kid, leading him to make a $1 million mistake.
It's kind of like it's already out of the bag, so...
I know, but what do you want me to tell you? What do you want to hear from me?
Which is that you weren't going with me to the final 3 to duke it out like men.
That is not the truth.
And now I'm supposed to buy the fact that just prior to me winning immunity, you had made up your mind to do the right thing.
Gosh, Tom, you're twisting the truth.
I'm twisting the truth? Come on. You gotta be kidding me.
We sat there.
There's all 3 of us. There's no more lying now. No matter what I say, I'm the bad guy tonight. And you know what? Because you're lying to her and to me.
I'll go now if you take Katie. And I'll give up the $1 million to get back your guys' friendship.
Danni is infamous for hiding her strategy from production, thus it made it really hard for the producers to highlight her game, and it makes it all that more confusing how she was able to make it past the Final Four round of Survivor Guatemala. After being the target at the Final 6, Danni won a clutch immunity and used this as an opportunity to make a Final 3 alliance with Rafe and Stephanie. Okay, so Judd is taken out at 6 due to her winning immunity, fair enough. Sydney backstabbed everyone from the car deal, so that's fair, and Lydia was voted out due to... Wait a minute, why was Lydia taken out over Danni again? The reasoning from Steph and Rafe was that Lydia was a bigger jury threat than Danni. The fact that Danni got them to believe that is impressive in its own right, never mind the fact that Steph and Rafe were so scared of Lydia that they didn't even want to risk Lydia winning the final immunity challenge despite her being incredibly weak the entire game. Oh man, if they only knew. I know this isn't exactly a quote move per se on Danni's part, as it's more so just insanely good social play, but the fact that she was able to convince Steph and Rafe to spare her over Lydia never fails to amaze me.
Steph's like, you know, the 2 of us need to get to the final 2, and we should keep Lydia, and then we'll have a better shot of winning the final 3 immunity challenge. I mean, as possible, it's a better strategic decision, but like, I promised Danni that I was going to go to final 3 with her.
15th person voted out of Survivor Guatemala. Lydia. Lydia, you need to bring me your torch. Lydia, the tribe has spoken.
I know Aras isn't the most entertaining winner in the world, but that's exactly what makes him so great, as this 24-year-old fratty looking dude was somehow, someway, able to hold the crazy personalities of Kasaya together, despite the constant fights from Courtney and Shane, the drunken moments of Bruce and Bobby, and Danielle being petty with everyone. Aras centered himself as Kasaya's leader on day 1, and was able to keep the Kasayas together at the merge when they had literally every reason to turn on each other. So yeah, maybe I'm cheating here by not really picking out a specific moment, but for an underrated winner like Aras, I feel like his general dominance deserves some recognition.
Shane, come back here. You know that thought was in there.
I just don't want to make, like, if I get hydrated and I get food, I don't want to...
Then you can go home and you have my word on it. Okay. Just try it.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Eating as much rice as we can, and then we bring it in together while they're paddling, like stay together, don't give them a thing.
Wait.
We're gonna welcome them in with open arms, welcome to our house, but we're gonna vote you off one by one by one by one.
On to Yul Kwon now, a winner who saved Survivor with his big move at the final 9. We all know the story by now, as the I-2-4 had clawed their way back into the 5-4 minority after originally being down 8-4 in the numbers due to Penner and Candace joining Raro. With Penner being the swing vote due to realizing he was on the outs of the Raro tribe, Yul used his ultimate secret to persuade Penner to flip back to I-2's side.
The hypothetical is a reality. This is the idol. And I'm asking you for both of our sakes to become my ally again.
I have a lot to think about and a huge decision to make.
12th person voted out and the 4th member of our jury. Nate. Nate, tribe has spoken.
Earl is such a unique winner, as despite being a dominant winner, he dominated the game in such a calming manner, and even his best move this season wasn't flashy on his part, but it put him in such a good spot come the endgame. After the target Boo won immunity, the target switched to the biggest jury threat left in the game, in Yao Man. Even though Earl was Yao Man's #1 ally, everyone trusted him enough to tell him of the plan to take out Yao that night, despite Yao having a public idol. So Earl told his friend and ally to keep his eyes and ears open at Tribal, which led to Yao playing his idol, with Earl voting along with him to take out Stacy. This not only kept his closest ally and shield in the game, but keep in mind, there was also the card deal looming between Yao and Dreams, taking the attention away from Earl. It's small little things like this that make Earl such a top tier winner, despite not being the most flashy winner.
Well, at this point, Earl and I each have our own hidden immunity idol. With that, we will certainly guarantee our place at the final 4.
13th person voted out and the 7th member of our jury, Stacy. Stacy, the tribe has spoken. It's time for you to go.
I know a lot of you would think I would put the James blindside as Todd's best move in China, but for one, that was more so Amanda's move, and two, I think it was a bit risky for Todd, as had James played his idol like any normal person would, he would have gone home. Oh, yeah, I forgot. But either way, I still think his best move was blindsiding JR at the final 9, as it basically summed up Todd's controlling game to a T. After it was JR who threw out the idea of taking out James with 2 idols in his pocket, Todd realized that JR was indeed playing the game hard, and if JR was already thinking about flipping on Fei Long to make a big move, what would stop him from doing the same thing to Todd in the future? So, instead of going along with JR's plan, Todd flipped the game around on the bigger threat gameplay-wise, taking out JR in a 5-3-1 vote. And yet, despite breaking his trust, Todd was still able to get his deciding vote to win him the $1 million.
You blindsided me, okay, I'm out of the game. But I wasn't the biggest threat.
You started to strategically place ideas in people's heads, which is what I wanted my job to be. And when you had approached me about blindsiding James, I was like, oh no, he's catching up. So who then becomes the biggest threat to me? You. I had to get rid of my biggest strategic threat, who was you.
On to Parvati Shallow. I'll admit, this one was a struggle for me, as between her orchestrating the Ozzy blindside, along with creating the Black Widow Brigade, the most dominant alliance in Survivor history, I had a tough time in choosing which one was better. But in the end, I feel that Ozzy's blindside really impacted that post-merge, and was a butterfly effect, leading to Parvati winning Micronesia. Remember, Ozzy not only had an idol in his pocket, but if Parvati went along with his plan to take out Jason, that would eliminate his only challenge competition threat, meaning Ozzy could absolutely mess up the Black Widow Brigade's plans, not to mention, he was in a showmance with Amanda. So the time to strike was now. With Parvati and Cirie leading the charge, they got their allies of Alexis and Natalie on board, along with the outsider Jason to blindside Ozzy in an epic 5-4 vote, taking the challenge piece out of the game with an idol in his pocket, and freeing up Amanda, who would eventually be the one to take Parvati to the final 2. Just freaking iconic.
10th person voted out of Survivor fans versus favorites and the 2nd member of our jury, Ozzy. Need to bring me your torch.
On to Bob Crowley. Oh boy, this is gonna be tough. Again, without question, the best thing Bob did was win challenges, and his quote's big move was making a fake idol, which only pissed off the final tribal council swing votes and Randy. But I will give some credit to Bob for the relationship he built with Sugar, which is ultimately what won him the game. After winning 3 clutch immunities to get him to the final 4, Bob looked all but done for when he lost the final immunity challenge, as he was the last original Coda member left standing, But with Sugar being the kind soul she was, she couldn't bear to vote him out, as she thought of him as a father figure, and gave him a chance at fire against Maddie, and as they say, the rest is history.
Maddie's still struggling. Bob has burned through the rope. Bob has won this challenge. Bob is moving on to the final and will have a shot at winning this game and the $1 million.
The winner of Survivor Gabon, Bob.
For as great of a winner as JT is, there's really not a signature move in his game. I mean, he was a part of one of the greatest duos ever with Fishback, was in control at Jalapal, and the duo was so loved out there that even members of Timbira couldn't get enough of him. But I think the one move that represents JT's game to a T came at the final 5. Remember, while JT is a good old Southern boy, he can also play villainous at times, which we saw in Heroes vs. Villains. At the final 5 of Tokachins, Coach was the odd one out, and was a lock to go home, but Coach and JT had an alliance since the merge, with Coach of course calling him the Warrior. So, in a heroic yet villainous move, JT went behind the back of his allies in order to secure the jury vote of Coach, as he voted for the hated Aaron at the final 5. It's a small little moment in JT's dominant game, but it's such an underrated move that really defines who JT is as a player.
JT ended up voting with Coach, I think for both personal and strategic reasons. You know, then JT comes off looking like the loyal ally, whereas I'm the guy who backstabbed Coach. You know, ultimately I think it'll hurt me.
You definitely got his vote tonight, friend. You know, I think I probably will come off as a villain. And you're gonna profit from it.
It amazes me that some people still think of Natalie White as the worst Survivor winner, as her move at the final 12 of Samoa changed the course of the entire season. With the foe of foes down 8-4 in the numbers, she threw out the idea of blindsiding Eric, because hey, why not? Galu would still be up 7-4 in the numbers, and nobody trusted Eric anyway, so might as well take him out when he least expects it. While this move was great in itself, I think people forget just how much this changes the season, and especially changes the legacy of Russell. If Natalie doesn't get the Galu to flip on one of their own, Russell wastes his idol at 12, and Jason is the one to go home that night. And at that point, there is no big idol play from Russell at the final 11. Sure, he's still a legend for finding idols without clues, but eventually, he would have just simply been an early merge boot, as A3 numbers would have been too much to overcome. Thanks to Natalie, Galu couldn't split their votes at 11, which led to Russell's iconic idol play. Shambo then flipped at the next vote, and after that, the 4 took control of the game. And all of this was thanks to sweet old Natalie's incredible social game.
I don't trust Eric. And that's a good instinct. Here's the thing.
I'm telling you, y'all, he is gonna wreak havoc.
Kelly and Laura, I just basically let them know that Eric needed to go now. We have 4 people, they have 8. It's not a big deal if they lose 1.
7th person voted out of Survivor Samoa and the first member of our jury. Eric, that's 7, that's enough. Need to bring me your torch.
We end off part 1 with the best move from the Queen's second winning game, which comes at the final 12 of Survivor Heroes vs. Villains. With her and Courtney at the bottom of the Villains tribe, Sandra made up a complete lie on the spot, telling Russell that Coach was planning on taking him out, and Russell 100% believed it. Not to mention, it was even more genius to throw Coach under the bus, as the Heroes were suspecting an all-female alliance, and with Coach gone, that would confirm their suspicion. Coach would indeed be blindsided, with Courtney soon to follow, ending the pre-merge. Had Sandra not pulled this off, it would have been Courtney going home at 12, with Sandra to follow. But Sandra playing up to Russell's ego helped her get to the merge, which gave her a pathway to become the queen.
I heard Coach was saying that he made a mistake and he wished he could go back.
What mistake?
In letting Rob go home. That he should have never made a choice that he made and that he's sorry. That's what he told her. And that he wanted to get rid of you.
You know, he's digging his own grave just like Rob did.
I told Russell that Coach was talking about voting for him, and Russell's so stupid. He ate that crap up. I'm telling you, he's like, oh my God, I can't trust him. And the sooner he goes, the better.
9th person voted out of Survivor Heroes vs. Villains, and the first member of our jury. Coach, need to bring me your torch. Coach, tribe has spoken. Time for you to go.
Thank you guys so much for watching part 1 of every Survivor winner's best move, and be on the lookout for part 2 next Sunday. If you like these videos, then be sure to smash that like and subscribe button, as the support would mean a lot. With all that said, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.